Haven't seen you in a while. Margot, thank you for going on camera. Mr. Gary, good to see you, buddy. All right, let's get started. Kim and I, we always have discussions about like what do we want the topic to be as we head into each session that we're doing. And usually we don't plan this out until a few weeks before at the earliest, because that way we can talk about something that's actively happening. So we're not mapping out the whole year. But when we were talking, both of us seemed to have story after story where the numbers didn't add up or the data didn't make sense or somehow it didn't go as we would normally deal with in 20 plus years of real estate. But here's what I wrote down, that we were talking about how in completely different parts of the country, people are describing their markets completely differently. Whether we don't even know, are we in a seller's market or a buyer's market? Because in some instances, prices are up, but in those same areas, asking prices are down. Prices are up, but listing prices are actually down. Inventory is up, but still below nationally the normal amount. We have 20% of the sellers cutting their list price, but a third of the homes are selling within 2 weeks. So we're seeing a market, we're seeing more price reductions than we've seen in forever, but those homes are still selling on average way lower. What else? Homes aren't selling above asking, but individual houses are still creating bidding wars. So nationally, we're not seeing list price to sale price anywhere near what it used to be, but we're still seeing bidding wars. We literally have one region of our country that's 50% below normal inventory, and then we have other areas of our country that are actually above pre-pandemic numbers. Like all these numbers that keep going, that we keep talking about, like we keep thinking about the stories. We have, we had a house that went on the market for $400,000 but sold for $375,000, and we have another story of a home that went on the market for $375,000 but sold for $400,000. Too much. Did I go over enough there? I don't know. Am I breathing? But like, well,
I think the biggest thing is that statistically, if you know how to pull the market stats, which if you don't know how, it's in Bright, and then there's reports in Bright, and then there's a market report that you can pull, what the inventory levels are in a specific zip code in the whole county. Like you can pull, as drill down as much as you want. We pull all of Bucks County when we pull these numbers internally for the team and track it. We have a spreadsheet where we track it. I've said that before, like week over week. So statistically, a balanced market where every home that goes on, another one's coming off, is like a 4.5 to 5.5 months supply of inventory. Right now in Bucks County, we're like a 2-month supply of inventory. So 2 months supply inventory should mean that we're back where every home's getting multiple offers selling for over list price. But yet somehow we have a bunch of very picky buyers. And even though they don't have many homes to choose from, they're fine just saying, I don't like it, I'll wait for another one to come on, even if that means it's
totally right.
3 months from now. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to look at this one next door, or this one across the street, or the 7 other in the neighborhood. There might be no others in the neighborhood or the town, but they're like, if it's ugly, I don't want to make an offer.
Picky, and they should be. Pickier than we're used to, pickier than what we've seen over the last 6 years. By the way, when she says Bright, by the way, Kim, we're growing. We have people all over the country.
Oh, yeah. The MLS.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah. When you go into so in our MLS is Bright, so we go into our MLS to get all the data. The reality is, what we need to go over today is, what is the data that listing agents never usually look at that I think now they have to? And what I wrote down is the market we're in right now is so neighborhood specific in our area, but I'm hearing this I heard it from an agent in Texas. I heard it from an agent in Seattle, Washington, that it's so specific. Even with the inventory level being somewhat higher in those areas, they're still seeing even higher inventory is actually getting multiple offers in certain situations. So even when we're seeing inventory go up, we're seeing multiple offers. But in other areas,
the funny thing is, like, I wouldn't even say it's neighborhood specific, because typically Newtown always sells quickly. And there's a neighborhood in Newtown right now, and I was just talking to an agent in my office that has a listing in this neighborhood in Newtown that is a $800,000 neighborhood that normally people are the second the house gets listed, it's got 10 offers and a line out the door because it's just that neighborhood that everyone wants in Newtown. But because it has a little bit of a small backyard and not a new kitchen, she hasn't had any offers. And now she's talking about doing like a pretty drastic price reduction. And she's talking about reducing it to $799 when the last two that sold in that neighborhood sold for 900,000, and they weren't even that much more updated, but it's just like the market has changed so much that all the buyers that would have paid $900,000 for this house 6 months ago now aren't even willing to pay the I think she said she's listed at like, I don't know, 825 or 829 or something, and she can't even get an offer on it. And it is a desirable neighborhood, but it's just not perfect.
And the path to getting to the closing or like getting to a deal is way different than it was also. Like it's not the same path of list the house and you'll negotiate. Now, like literally, if you're not listing the house at the right price based on numbers that you never have to look at, you didn't have to look at before, you're not, we talked about this, that if you listed at the wrong price in the beginning, because the numbers say, well, a house sold for $900,000, so I'm going to look at it, but you got to look at what they started at and how do they get to 900, not just what they sold for.
Yeah.
Like I love that. That was a critical part on your listing side of maybe it's not neighborhood to neighborhood, like you said, but it is looking at a house and saying, wait a second, we actually have to look at this list price way different than we had to even before COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's almost like, so I've always, when I go to meet with a seller and I bring comps, I always highlight the original price and the days on the market and then what they actually got. And my conversation used to be, well, they started at 750 and they ended up getting 800. So we don't want to list for 800, but I never wanted to list for 800. I never wanted to like build on the next one and the next one. I always was like, they listed for 750, so we should list for 750 and we'll get the same 800. But now I'm like, they listed for 750. We might want to list for 740. Like, I don't even necessarily want to go above what the last one listed for. We might even need to go a little below what the last one listed for.
You know what it is? If we realize the numbers are not making sense, meaning the inventory should bring demand, and in the market we're in, we're realizing, we keep saying the Twilight Zone, let's do it. Let's keep saying that. But if we realize it and understand it, then we can sit down with the seller and show them why what they're seeing may not be what they think they should do and why they actually need to look at it from a totally different perspective, simply because if they do it the wrong way, the market's actually not going to work for them. It's actually going to work in the opposite direction that they think. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I always say that. Is anybody else dealing with, like, in terms of what I want to start with is the listing side, in terms of like really seeing that when you list a house in terms of the price right now, what are you looking at? And is it different than it used to be for you? And if anybody has any thoughts on that, make sure you raise your hand or comment, because we want to get your guys' thoughts wherever you are in the country. Because I feel like if we're talking about it, that you guys have stories where things are not adding up on your side, especially on the listing side. So I definitely want to make sure you guys understand that I'm encouraging you guys. Tell us what you're thinking also, especially as you're listing houses wherever you are. So
I'm gonna call on Lisa here, because Lisa just put together a little group in our office that met like 2 hours ago today to talk about this exact topic. So maybe you have some ahas from your little mastermind today.
Yay, aha, hi.
hello there.
So the ahas were kind of a little bit on the off market, using a little bit of off market, office exclusive, network exclusive, because it's really not office anymore, to test a price possibly, as opposed to, like, I'm going to give you an example. I have a property. I have my price in mind. I've talked about the price with the seller. I think they understand the price, but they're still doing that. Well, that doesn't give us any wiggle room. And I'm like, well, you can see what happened to everybody that got wiggle room. Like, they got 10,000 less. So
I actually had that written down, Lisa.
It's happened.
We can just come down.
Yeah. And I don't agree with, like, whatever price over is not my number, right? Like, I told them my number. And so they're thinking about it tonight. I'm going back out tomorrow. We're doing pictures tomorrow, but then we were going to be coming soon. But I have to tell you, I might, because they really are ready to show it. I'm not really sure why they want to wait till Labor Day, other than somewhere they heard that it's better. But we all were struggling with that in the meeting. What do you do? Do you put it up now or do you wait?
I think, especially when you're sitting there talking about price with them right now, they have to understand that if the market's not moving based on inventory, it's only going to move based on really motivating the buyer right now. I mean, that's what we're talking about. It's really strange. We're in a weird world where the seller says, if we have no competition, why don't we price super aggressively and try to get $1 million for it? And you have to tell them the problem is the demand isn't moving the way it needs to. And like you said, price it at 365 instead of 375. That'll start moving the demand that we need. And 400 or Lisa's people, the buyers are just not going to move the way they want to.
They're not even going to schedule appointments is the thing. Like they just won't even go look at it.
Well, and it's funny. So I pulled stats because I do like market stats, right? I think this can be helpful in your conversations, whatever. So like year on year. So I looked, now I did Lower Makefield, 450 to 550. And in July, units sold in that price range were 2. That's interesting. So July of 25 last year, there were 6.
So house sales down, prices up.
Yeah,
well, no, price is not up.
Oh, that's what I mean. Yeah, they're way around. The other way around.
July of 25, the price listed median was 500 and listed medium this July was 469.9. That's a lot.
Yeah. That doesn't make sense, right? Like that doesn't make sense if we have what did we say? How much inventory?
But then the monthly supply inventory, that MSI number is 0.5.
Yes,
so there's really nothing.
There's less houses,
but
they're
6
not
inventory, 7. But interesting, the sold median isn't that far off. So last year it was 487.5 in July. This July was 482.5. So that's $5,000. It's not significant.
But you know what's funny? Is it playing out in every single house? Like what I'm hearing are so many different stories of almost not the same house, but basically the same house. I mean, we're literally, I literally wrote down like 10 stories that are recent where it doesn't make sense. Like what actually played out for the buyer or the seller. What I love is most of them, they played out better for our clients, but it doesn't make sense how they played out. And so what I want to do is let's share some stories because I think stories will get everybody thinking about like, wow, that is kind of happening. Maybe the statistics are what are showing us why we're talking about this, but the stories I think that we talk about are going to prove why we really need to dig deep for our listings, but also buying side. I mean, the buying side right now, and we'll get to it later, but I'll tell you how I want to touch on it. The word multiple offers does not mean that on the buying side, you have to then jump to the insanity of the craziness of the market. And if you're thinking you hear a listing agent tell you there's multiple offers, that doesn't have to trigger you going to your buyer immediately going, now we have to go bonkers crazy.
No, and you know what has been happening recently too is if we get an offer in from someone and it's not good, I hesitate to even tell another agent showing it that we have an offer because in their heads, oh, we're not even going to bother. It's probably, I mean, I had a house that was listed at like 875 and we got an offer and it was like 830. And then another showing comes and we say, do you have any offers? And we do, but I don't want to say it to you in a way where you think you have to be 875 or 885 because the house is not worth that. And I don't want you to say, we're not even coming to look at it because how do I say our offer that we have is $40,000 under the list price. This is really not competition, but in their heads, the second I say there's another offer, they're like, oh, you'd have to pay 900 and my clients aren't willing to pay it. So this is why we're here. Like you can't assume multiple offers means that it's 10 and they're all waived this, that, and whatever. Like there could be multiple bad offers. And so someone recently on Facebook, and I apologize if this person is here. There was, I forget who posted it, but someone posted and they made the comment. It was like a popular local realtor. So you could be here. I don't know, but someone made the comment. I'm sick of people asking how many offers do you have? It doesn't matter if I have 1 or 10, you have competition. And I don't agree with that statement.
Not even remotely.
1 versus 10, 10, yeah, I probably do have to be above the list price and waive a bunch of stuff. 1, it might not be good. So I don't agree that that number doesn't
1,000%.
matter. That number matters.
Not even remotely. There's a million analogies. Like, well, if you're in a fight, would you want to fight one person or 10 people? If you're like, literally the whole point of actually a market in general is supply and demand. So more demand, more people you're fighting against, the more likely the price is going to be higher than what it was.
Yeah.
The difference is when you have two offers and we hear multiple offers and we immediately jump to this is what's going to get crazy. When you calm down and you actually realize the real estate market is not the same way it's been over the last 6 years all the time. And you have to actually calm down and find leverage points for your buyers that exist by using things like escalation clauses or other things that ensure that you're going to be competitive, as competitive as your buyer wants to be, but not like
Without
giving
going
away your
crazy.
firstborn
Yeah.
child.
Exactly.
I wouldn't give away Brianna. Maybe Grace. Don't know. Oh no, we're on Facebook. Jackie's gonna hear this. It's awesome. But yeah, so why don't you just tell some? Like I got a bunch of stories, but I know you have recent stories about either listings. Let's talk about the listing side. Listings that you've had where it's gone bonkers. And if anybody else has a story, just raise your hand or comment. We'd love to hear the stories you're dealing with, so we all can like commiserate over the craziness.
So I think Jennifer, you had raised your hand and maybe
Yes.
put something in the chat, but I didn't open it. Do you want to tell your story?
Go for it, Jen.
Take yourself off and mute.
I'm coming. There we go.
Yeah, we're good. Good to see you,
There
Jen.
we go. All right. So we have an opportunity for a listing, and I love it because it was referred to us from another agent within our company. So we already feel pretty good because it's they don't know us, but being that it's family that referred us, so that's the little back part.
Yep.
They bought in 2021, and I went did the research, and it just said due to the high demand for this property, all offers will be received, next week or whatever it was.
Yep.
And that's one thing that drives me crazy when agents now put in their comments, all offers. Why are you even doing that? You're already jinxing yourself.
Before they even get offers.
Yes, right, exactly. So now I'm trying to set up my buyers like, all right, I don't know what we're going to deal with. So anyway.
So hold on one second. I don't want to pause you. I just want to pause on that real quick. Like what I'm hearing is like you're literally hurting your seller because what you're providing is a message to the buyer that hold tight. You're going to be dealing with competition. And now you could literally be putting your home on the market and scaring people away for no reason.
Yeah. And there's always like I'm in Chester County.
Yep.
And there's a pocket of certain agents, like that is their go-to language. And I'm like, drives me crazy. But
How
anyway.
often is it like Tuesday and they didn't get multiple offers and now they have to delete that sentence and like
Or don't, by the way, or just leave it out there.
that I've
I'm
seen that where it's like the
yeah.
third week and it's like offers will be reviewed August 1st and I'm like today's the 12th, so I
I'll
don't
be
think
honest, I didn't really like pay attention as if, I didn't have the time to follow up on it. It was something that I showed a buyer and we didn't like it. And I'm like, all right, off the table. So my question is when you have a seller who bought in 21 and they paid pretty good money and they made some improvements to their home, but that were necessary improvements. So for example, they went from like a spring, they had a well, but was spring water to now a well, but then they
that's a good expense. Yeah, that's a significant
$30,000. And then they paved their driveway. It used to be gravel, now it's paved. And while all of this is wonderful, I'm trying to explain
you're
that
not getting the money back
not
for
getting that
that.
back.
Yeah.
Right. And I was going to
this is your realm.
How do you approach these sellers?
I mean, you just have to explain to them that the improvements they made, while they're smart improvements, the buyers aren't gonna, give them dollar for dollar for those types of things over what they paid. And I mean, from 2021 to now, their price will be higher at least.
Oh, sure.
It should be significantly higher. So I don't know if it's as much as like comparing to 2021 as just making sure you're comparing accurately to
today.
What's recently sold. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then on top of that, it's a bit of an odd contemporary cedar shake outside. So you have to paint all the wood all the time.
Yep.
And There's the masters on the first floor, but the two are upstairs. And that's always a little different when you have family. So it has its quirks. And it's one of these homes that I think it's going to take the right buyer.
Yeah, and there's a lot like that right now. And I just, you just kind of have to tell your seller, this is not the market you bought in. This
Yeah.
isn't the market where those quirks didn't matter because everyone was desperate to find a house.
Yeah.
Rates were 2%. Rates are, almost 7% now. So
Right.
everyone is getting a little pickier, and the things that maybe you overlooked because you were getting 2 or 3% and you were desperate in 2021, remember what those things were that maybe gave you pause, because they're the things that are going to give the buyer today pause. And unfortunately, the buyers today, if they have pause, they're just not making offers.
Are these
Yes.
people buying? Are they going to be buying after they sell this place?
They are relocating to Minnesota, but they're going to live with family first until
So they're
they.
not like buyers in our market anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
The reason why I'm saying that simply is one of the strategies that have worked for me is to just always try to put the seller or the buyer in the opposite person's
Yeah.
table.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
if you were buying a home, I get it. You bought in 2021, you did this stuff that's necessary. But if you were buying in this market right now, and you would compare it to the other homes like you would. So in this market right now, I want you to think of how we can present your home to today's buyer as if you were today's buyer.
Yeah.
And hopefully
Right.
they start to realize, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I would look at it that way. Or I would, I know that the well is great, but I don't really care.
I'm
It
not going
doesn't
to pay
give me,
$30,000
Right.
more just because you upgraded it.
yeah,
Yeah.
because my waterworks, yeah. And
Yeah,
what
yeah.
did you think in 21? It might have been different, but what you think now. So I love doing that, but I also
That's a
know
great
that.
idea. Yeah, very good. Yeah, just
Wait a
kind of
second.
play
Kim, did I
devil's
just give a good
advocate.
idea on the listing side? Wait a second now.
Maybe. I don't know.
Hold on. Should I
How
change
long was
my
it on the market when they bought it?
Yeah. Would you say, Lee Scott?
Oh.
What was that?
How long was it on the market?
When they
Like-
bought?
Did they buy it the first day?
2 days.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be the person that's on the market. The other thing is, by the way, that's a great question you asked that. Literally, one of those things that I mentioned was that we have 20% of homes price reducing, but still selling within 2 weeks, which
Mhm.
means we're seeing people lower their price because what used to be 2 weeks on the market was no big deal.
Yeah.
Now the pressure is
Yeah.
packed.
2 weeks feels like 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Old
do you
fix.
all feel if you're pricing a home correctly, you really believe you did that work? When I started, it was always give it 30 days.
Right.
And then let's see.
Yeah.
I'm like 7 to 10 days. If we don't have offers in 7 to 10
So
days,
you're
we
okay.
might be a little over.
It's going to
Or
be a long time.
or you have a bunch of showings in 7 to 10 days and you get a bunch of people that call and say, we're thinking
Yeah.
about it, we're thinking about it, we're thinking about it. And they're constantly
that's what it
thinking
was.
about it, but no one's
Yep.
willing to actually write something, then you're overpriced.
You're right. I always heard if there's 10 showings with no offers, or with 2 weeks with
Right.
no offers, you're overpriced.
Yeah.
All right, let me say something to that real quick. The problem we have and why we're in the Twilight Zone market is because all of this is based on the expectations of consumers that have been telling them for the better part of the last 7 years that if this happens, that happens. If you price your house, you'll get 50 offers. The expectations have been nowhere near what they have. So now we have a problem, everybody. The normal thing that she just said, which is, look, a normal market, we expect 30 days is not the end of the world in a normal market based on inventory levels, supply and demand. The problem is it's going to take forever for the consumer's expectations to even remotely line up with what the inventory levels will become. So even when they get to 4.5, 5, the seller's still going to say, why haven't you sold my home in a week? Well, we have, it's going to be a while before we can even get the buyer to understand normal market is 30 days, not 3 days or 1 day, especially the people you're talking about that literally bought in 2021. They're still feeling how fast it was. And that's 6 years ago.
Mhm.
5
And
years
what
ago.
about the people that want to make an offer? And then when they hear there's no other offers in, they say,
What's
well,
wrong?
if there's not competition, what's wrong with it?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Just make an offer. Why do you need to only make an offer if other people want to make an offer?
Twilight Zone market, because now all of a sudden we have low inventory with no demand, but the buyers aren't seeing the opportunities. And what our job is to take that hard task of setting expectations with either buyers. Now, I got to tell you, I'm having a little fun with this because on the buying side, we can look better on the buying side by just being aware. The
Well, on the
expectation-
buying side, you need to convince your buyers to just make the offer.
right. Or
And
see the
stop
house.
waiting. Stop
See the house.
saying like, well, let's see if it's still available in a few days, or let's see if they get multiple offers. And if they don't get multiple offers, then maybe we'll make an offer. Just make the offer.
Oh, I'm going to tell you, just see the house. Like,
Yeah.
first I got to get you to go see the house because you're like, I don't want to see it. It's going to sell for over. And but I actually don't mind that. I love in that world where I'm like, trust me, go see it. We might be, because if I can get $1 under list price on negotiating,
Yeah.
man, I look like a hero
If
to
you could
again.
get full price, but you
Right.
so Lisa brought me an offer a couple months ago on one of my listings, same thing. Everyone's circling, everyone's like, oh, I wrote the offer, I'm waiting for the signatures. And I'm like, well, it's not here yet. And she wrote the offer and she wrote full price and they had full inspections and they had full contingencies. And everyone else, we accepted her offer, we moved quickly. She sent it, we accepted it like 5 hours later. We didn't say we're gonna do a deadline, we're gonna try to get multiple offers. And then I had 2 other agents call me, oh, you accepted something? Well, they finally are ready. Okay, well, I'm sorry,
Right.
you didn't act and she did.
This is
I
about,
just had an agent, I'm sorry.
no, go for it.
I
Yeah,
just
no.
had an agent, and again, it didn't close it because they came in very low, but they showed it Friday and they sent me, like on Monday, I'm like, are you sending an offer? Like you're sending me all the stuff that you were. Wednesday, or what day is today? Oh, Tuesday they sent it. And I'm like, oh, but she was waiting for the BFI.
Why would you wait? Just
Why
say-
have you not had done that
Yeah,
before you
good.
were out
I know.
showing?
Yeah,
I
but also,
Like-
why would you
hope
wait? Like
she's
at
not
least,
on
at
here.
least get the offer in and then be like, I'm gonna get you this after, but don't wait
Well,
4 days to
But
make
I'm
an
like,
offer.
be prepared.
Yeah, well,
you
that
know,
too. Yeah, why didn't she have it from their first meeting?
Right.
I think
Like-
the jobs become harder to set expectations. I think if I summarize what we're doing today, we're learning that to set expectations with sellers on the market not being exactly the same, even though the numbers look the same. And then the same thing with buyers, setting expectations that you might not need to be crazy, but also we need to be aware that maybe it does go crazy and we still have to live in a world where if it does, because the Twilight Zone comes back around and we have homes that are getting 9 or 10 offers. And so we have to be aware if that happens to still be ready for our buyers if that happens also. It's just,
But also, how about just tell your buyer, like, be prepared to make the offer quickly because everyone else is
You could.
waiting and
Yep.
we might be able to act fast and just get it done.
and by the way, asking the listing agent ahead of time, what's your plan? Like I've talked to plenty of listing agents today that are like, man, I'm not expecting, they're the opposite of what Jennifer said. Like Jennifer, the opposite, the agent that says, I'm not putting deadlines. I'm
No.
not guaranteeing anything. And what I will do is when I call that agent, I'm like, and they're like, yeah, get me something because I'm here to work with what I have. And I don't even know I'm definitely going to get anything. So that's what we need to get back to.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Right.
and as a listing agent in the listing appointment, don't shoot yourself in the foot and promise multiple offers, like be realistic that this is a different market, let's not expect we're going to have a frenzy. Why would I set myself up for that just to disappoint people?
Yeah, the one thing I want to get to here is the list pricing and the strategy around list pricing and the oddness of sitting down with a seller. And I know you have an example of this. I know I definitely have at least one example of this where there was a seller that we were working with that wanted to list the house for $395, insisted on listing the house for $395. The agent said we should list it for $375. Not $395. We might get the $395, but let's list it for $375. Why? Because they understand the Twilight Zone market. So we understand that, and we tell the seller list it for $395. And in the end, you know what they get? $375 after way too long on the market, and it's the only offer they get. That same basic house goes on the market for $375, and we have one very similar that went on the market for $375. That we told them you could get $395, and the seller says, well, no, we're not going to do that. We'll list it for $375. They got $395.
Yep. And they got it quicker and they got it with better contingencies.
Yep. And it's not about deciding what it's worth, whether it's worth $375 or $395. In fact, our job as agents on your guys' side, the listing side, is not to tell people what their home is worth. It's to strategize what's going to maximize in the market they're in and let them decide. But we need to be better at setting expectations on the $395 right now, when we think it should possibly sell for $375, could really cost you 20 grand. So So you have a story. Do you have a story about that? I know you have a story similar to that.
Yeah, I have another story. Also,
Go for it.
so like I'm a broken record in listing appointments at this point, but I never leave a listing appointment at some point without making the statement of, at the end of the day, it is not you or I who determine the final price of your house. It is the market. I would love if the market brings you the 800,000 you want. We could price it at the 800,000 you want, but again, like, I'm not buying it, you're not buying it, it's the market. So what a buyer is willing to pay is what your home is actually worth.
Yep.
Uh,
Have
So,
to.
we had a listing recently where it was exactly like you just said. We know that buyers are picky, and this was a elderly person's house. It's a 90-year-old couple. And it's very well maintained, but it is an elderly person's house. So, I know the feedback ahead of time, if I'm priced too high, is going to be, it needs everything. It needs a kitchen, it needs bathrooms, it needs carpet, it needs paint, and, it needs everything, even though it's very, very well maintained. And I think most agents they met with, kind of were like, 500 is the right price, and 500 is the right price. But when we were in a stronger market, 500 was the right price. A couple had sold for 500 that, were also outdated.
And you had motivated buyers with the rates. You had people ready to go.
Yes. And so, and this was like spring, and now people are on vacation, whatever. So like this is not spring market right now. This summer is slower. And so the sellers agreed, we don't want to overprice it. We're going into assisted living, like, just get us a price that will get us a clean, easy sale. So we listed it at 475. We actually ended up getting 10 offers, and the winning buyer is paying 520. If we would have listed it at 520, I know that I would
crazy.
be on the market for 6 months with every single buyer saying, oh, 520, it needs so much work. It needs so much work. I think even at 500, I would have gotten people all day saying how much work it needed. But at 475, people got in the door. They realized how well maintained it is, and they were willing to pay more, and they'll do the updates later.
This is, by the way, I don't envy you. That's a really hard thing to explain to sellers and show sellers why, even though you're going to get five. And by the way, even though the neighbor 2 houses down sold for 520, we're actually not going to price for 520. Even though you might get 520, we're not going to actually list it at 520. But if you listed it at 520, like most people might have done, or the other agents listed even at 500, they're sitting there talking about price reductions, by the way, down to, what were you at? You said 475. Is that what you started at?
Mm-hmm.
So now all of a sudden you're thinking about price reducing from 500 down to 475, only hoping to still get 475, by the way.
And meanwhile, we're 475 with waived inspections and waived financing.
Same house.
Yeah.
Same exact house.
We're 520 rather, with
Right.
a price for 475, but we got 520 and no contingencies.
No appraisal,
Nothing.
waiving.
No. Yeah.
So somehow, in a world where there was no demand on that, there could be no demand on that house, there became the perfect amount of demand. And you know what it is? It's not pricing it too low. It's pricing it at the perfect number that gets the same amount of a demand. You need that same demand that we had. If you price it at 500 in 2020, you might have gotten the 550 or whatever, the higher number. But you got to price it to maximize demand. And if you're not coming in at 500, then you're gonna get someone who's offering you lower. But if they're coming in, a lot of them at 475. And by the way, escalation clauses work to get you more money, because now you have multiple buyers that are going to do escalation clauses to these height of numbers that maybe they don't think they're going to go to, but they end up going to 520. Or was it an escalation that took it to 520?
Yeah, it was. Most people's offers were like 495, but then a couple people's escalations were all right around 520.
And waiving appraisal. And so they're willing to go all in. By the way, everybody should listen to that. And on the buying side, I'm hearing that the buyer is willing to go all in as long as somebody else is also willing to go all in.
Mm-hmm.
And using that. And by the way, I'm going to talk about that because I'm learning that not even all states use escalation clauses. So if you're in a state that doesn't use escalation clauses normally, but you can, that's something to talk about. So my story is similar to yours. We were selling a family member's house in New Jersey. So if you're in New Jersey and talk about this if you don't use escalation clauses, because I'm learning maybe not as much in New Jersey. So we put the house on the market for $400,000. Okay. We put it on the market for $400,000. Day one, we got an offer for $430,000 for the house. Day one. And the buyer, by the way, was willing to wait all the way to Sunday from Tuesday to get a response. So what we have here is a buyer that jumped on this house that showed up on the market on a Tuesday, jumped so much that they gave away their firstborn child and went 30 grand over on the $400,000 house, willing to waive everything, give up everything. Day one, not only that, they were willing to wait 5 days for a response, giving the seller, because they think, well, there's no leverage for me as a buyer. I have to give the seller. My experience is the seller can wait as long as they want. Well, I can tell you right now, if they put a 24-hour deadline on that offer, we might have accepted that 430 offer, but they didn't. They thought we have no choice. We have no leverage. So they waited until Sunday. You know what's crazy? 1 million showings. We got 1 million showings on the house. And by Sunday, well, Saturday, we got one other offer. 1 million showings, one other offer. The other offer was literally at list price, asking for every inspection on earth, 5% down, nowhere near the best, even remotely close to the buyer that put the offer in on Tuesday for 430, giving away their first child. You know what happened? We went back
Hopefully
to
you
the
didn't
first
lose
offer.
the buyer.
No, we kept them on. They were good. They were ecstatic. We didn't lose the buyer. We ended up going to the buyer agent and saying, we have another offer. And they came up.
And they didn't
came
need
up-
to.
$5,000 to, they didn't ask, okay, are we, they didn't ask no other questions. They just said, oh, you were competing. All right, well, now we're going to go to 435 to get the house.
Was there any moment there that they worried that by telling the people there was another offer after they wrote such a great offer and you had no other interest, that that might be enough to push them away and then you were left with just the crappy offer?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what we did is, like, by the way, it wasn't me. I wasn't doing the listing. It was, well, you know, I'm not going to, well, I probably won't say who it was, but it was an agent in New Jersey. But yeah, they had to tread lightly. But you know what? That listing agent, the buyer's agent, they showed desperation. Oh, my buyer really wants the house. They're willing to wait. They'll do whatever they need to do. And okay, no problem. And they're living in a market that if they had just used an escalation clause and says, we'll pay, I don't care, $5,000 higher than your highest offer, or even thought, by the way, I'm not going to just match price. You guys understand escalation clauses, you can actually put them in and say, it's got to match price and mortgage contingency and other contingencies. And so they just needed an escalation on price that would have said, no, we'll go 5,000 or 3,000 over the highest offer. And they're getting it for 405 instead of 435. And they didn't have to even waive inspections. None of it, but the buyer agent was living in a world where they think, and so from my perspective on the listing side, right, I'm looking at and going, we're in a bizarre world. Only 2 offers and we still got crazy numbers. That offer waited 5 days and still upped it when they should have been pushing back. If they should have been pushing back and saying, you know, we'd like a response. You know, we're not.
But they didn't know. They don't have a crystal ball to know what they were up against.
Strange market. 2 offers and you're still getting over. And then literally we have another one where they get 8 offers. Actually, Mike and Amy are settling on Friday. We wrote an offer to buy a home in Collegeville. There were 4 offers and we did an escalation. You know what it turned out? The other 4 offers weren't even remotely over asking price. They were all basically at price. And our escalation, I think they got it just over asking price with 4 offers. We just put their home on the market on Friday. They got 9 offers listed for 430 and it sold for 495. And they were going to list it for 450. And if they had, we might have sat for a month. 430, we got 495. Strange market, friend. What other stories you got? I know you had a couple of them. You got other stories from the team? Or does anybody, Gary, I know Gary's coming off mute. What do you got going on the mortgage side? What are you seeing in demand and people coming to you and getting approvals and then waiting, or are they getting under contract?
Well, I saw your email, the Twilight Zone. I'm thinking maybe I should jump on here because it's kind of been a Twilight Zone-ish kind of summer.
Yeah.
But getting back to the multiple offers, now this is a different market. It was in, hold on a second.
Perfect timing, bud.
Of course.
Someone's trying to get a pre-approval from Mr. Coggin right now.
Right. So this was I had a client in North Carolina in the Outer Banks. And it's a different kind of market, obviously, but the scenario was there were multiple offers and the property sold for 50,000 under list price with multiple offers. And then they don't do escalation clauses in the Outer Banks of North Carolina, which made it even a little more strange.
So multiple offers and someone won under asking price.
Yeah, it's 50,000 under asking price with multiple offers. But it's, you know, it's a different kind of market down there. If that had been New Jersey, you know, at the shore, it would have been, you know, $100,000 over asking price with multiple offers. But it was just a different kind of market. And the other Twilight Zone story is,
you know, can I stop you for 1 second there though, Bud? Hold on, before you get to
Yeah.
the next story and jump on. You know what's crazy? I remember that's not a Twilight Zone moment. If you think about our careers, and I'm thinking about early in my career, it wasn't that we never had multiple offers that we were competing with. The list price to sale price ratios were at 96% or 95%. So even when there were multiple offers,
They weren't
everybody
aggressive.
was a little under.
Yeah.
Everybody was asking for inspections. You weren't
Yeah.
competing and going, well, is that person going to waive inspections or I'm not? So I love that we think that's a Twilight Zone, but in a normal market, even multiple offers under asking prices, it probably is.
Yeah.
I don't like, if I look back on all the deals I did in my career, I don't know if all of them where I wrote one offer to one seller who only had one offer. Many times we might have been competing or were competing with multiple people. And the seller agent decided, who am I going to talk to right now? When we negotiated that night with the agent they wanted to work with, or they can put them against each other, but you still landed under list price normally before. So
I feel like more so it was the conversation was, well, I have two groups that are coming for second showings.
yes.
And
Yeah.
so one of them's getting ready to make an offer because they've been visiting us for 2 weeks now. Yeah.
They're bringing
and
aunts
that
and
was like,
uncles.
oh, those people are really interested if they've been back twice in 2 weeks.
And
Yeah.
they still write 10% under to
yeah,
start
yeah.
because that's the way the market was. You
with
still
a
wrote
with
under.
a carpet credit and a painting credit and
Yeah.
yeah.
GFIs being replaced. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gary. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'm thinking that
no,
when you
that's,
say
that's,
it,
that's
I'm
fine.
thinking about that. I was so baffled when you said it, when you were like multiple offers under asking price. And I'm like, man, that completely blew my mind for a second. And then I was thinking that happened all the time before. That was actually normal for a long time.
Right, it was.
Yeah. Go ahead. What
Now,
else you got?
It just seems, you know, multiple offers recently has had that connotation that the price is going to go up dramatically.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Well,
So
that's
the other thing I've seen this summer, which is kind of weird, it's like both two separate ends of the market. I've dealt with a lot of like either first-time home buyers or young families that are strictly shopping school districts, right? And they're not as price sensitive because they want to be in that home for a
Yep.
specific reason, and they're willing to go over asking price or whatever they need to do to get to where they want to be, to get the results they want to get.
Yep.
But then not much in the middle. Not many people, you know, move up buyers selling at 400 to buy at 600 or 700. Like that's just hasn't really happened all summer long for the most part.
Yep.
But the other kind of market that I've been in is it totally blew my mind. I guess I'm maybe late to the party for it or whatever, but the over 55 buyers in the communities, they could care less what it sells for. I mean, you'll get like one listing, there'll be a feeding frenzy. And, you know, if I have a pre-approval, it's usually someone who wants a couple of $100,000 mortgage because they're coming heavy with cash.
Yep.
They either sold a property or they're liquidating something to make the deal work. But I mean, they'll just bid through the roof. I mean, I've seen, you know, $700,000 over 55s go to 8.25 like that because nobody cares about appraisal contingencies because the mortgage is going to be so low.
Yep.
Or the cash deals. It's
The
like
cash down or whatever. Yeah.
they really just don't care what the price is. It's just
You know
about
why?
winning.
You want to know why?
It's crazy. No, tell me why, please.
I'll tell you why I think. Because they're less worried about the money that's in their savings accounts than they would be if they were 25 or 35. And now maybe if they're buying those homes and they have the financial capability, they're just worried, well, I'll pay $100,000 more. It's just $100,000 less going to my children later on down the road. But I need to get in the house and I have the money and I'm not worried about my savings as much as I used to be.
For whatever reason, I guess this is the first, you know, market time frame that I've really been exposed to that. Maybe it's got to do with how long I've been in the business, and that's where a lot of my peers are, and they're buying that sort of property now. But it just completely blows my mind that, they'll bid through the roof and nobody cares about price.
I think it's the motivating. The two words that I take away from this session today are expectations and realizing motivations.
Yeah,
Like,
motivation is key, because the buyers who say, I don't like it, we'll just keep looking, clearly are not motivated. Like the
Yep.
buyers that have to be out then are the people like the buyer in New Jersey, who they were like, we have to get this house, we're going to pay 40,000 over. But it seems the majority of the buyers are kind of like, if we move, we move. If we don't, we've still got our 3% interest rate on our other house. So we're not really super excited. The house has to be perfect for us to actually want to make the move. And then as a buyer's agent, you tell me, because this is more you than me, do you try to bring them back to what would this house do for you? I know it's not the perfect house, but could you make it the perfect house? And like, is that neighborhood going to get you to the school that you've been wanting? Is the location, going to give you like the river nearby and all the family activities you're going to do? Is it going to get you out of your condo and into a house with a yard for your dog? Like, do you try to bring them back to realizing like, why did they want to move to begin with?
I think it's just weird because in 2020, the strategy it's almost the same but different. Like you're working with a buyer and they're afraid because of the competition. So they're afraid about price, and the motivation for them to still go into buying a home, even if prices were crazy, was the fact that their monthly payment was going to be totally great because interest rates were so low. So they were like, okay, I'm motivated even when it's still insane to go buy this house. So now we're working in a market where they're not motivated. It's a different reason why they're not motivated. They actually might even have the reason to move from a family reason, but they're not motivated because their interest rate is
They
currently
don't want to
way
pay that
lower.
monthly payment.
No,
Yeah.
they don't. And so now so what we're learning is that the market is going to move based on the motivation of the buyer. And right now at these rates, regardless of the list price, it's the interest rate the payment on the interest rate that's going to really scare them. So how do I talk to buyers without being dishonest? It's, are you comfortable with the payment right now? And would you be okay with icing on the cake down the road? Maybe if you refinance down the road, if maybe you decide, but you got to be comfortable now with the payment and forever. But the motivation is different. It's not sale price. Well, before it was a fear of sale price that stopped them, but motivated them by interest rate. Now it's not even sale price as much as I'm not going to be able to afford that monthly payment and interest rate. So
yeah, but I think that's just a number. I've seen very little true interest rate resistance.
yeah, no, I love that you're saying that.
Well,
When they
the
see
payment is what your resistance to, right? Not the rate itself, just the
I
payment.
think more and more, especially with people who have a desire to be somewhere because they're motivated for school district or things like that. I mean, they're
Right.
buying houses now the way they buy cars. It's like, what's going to cost me to drive this BMW as opposed to the Volkswagen? I mean, as long as it fits into their affordability.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't even shop interest rate really, and they really don't even shop payment. They just want to know that you can get them there.
It's just looked at differently, I think, than it ever used to be, or not ever before, when it used to be during a 5-year period. Because I think when I bought my first house, was interest rate mattered to me? No, but it was whatever you were telling me it was when I met with you. It wasn't like, well, I can get lower from a million different people. I think now the interest rate's affecting just the fact that prices are up and the payment is higher than what they maybe would have been able to get.
Well, also we used to be able to tell people it's always less monthly payment to buy and you're earning equity than to rent. You're throwing out money. It's actually less to rent now than to buy for a lot of houses.
Yeah, no, and you're right. And they have to see the benefits that are bigger picture than they used to have to before. And you're right, Gary. I think, you know what's funny? I think, Gary, that you're right because we've gone now 5 years with a couple years. It might have been rates really started going up 2 years ago, and we started to see 2.5 and 3 become 5 and closer to 6. So I think you're right, Gary. The more the time goes by, they'll stop thinking about the 2.5 rate.
Yeah.
Because they may not even have it anymore. It might not even be the house that they're living at anymore. So their comparison might be different. So I do think you're right. And I think that's why the market's shifting a little bit. But the motivation of the buyer, it comes down to that again. The buyers right now, they got to be more motivated. They even might have to been in 2020. I actually think that's possible, that we're seeing the reason why demand is not staying the same as inventory is because they're not as motivated buyers. It's hard to get them. There's not a lot of life moments right now forcing people to have to do it. I have clients that they have their second child coming in, I think, November, and their house is getting pretty small, but it's not that small anymore. They're actually going, you know what? I think we could do another year even with a baby in this house. They're not as motivated as they would be probably. The good news is if we're shifting and the market's shifting, then I'm going to be able to get them into something that they may not have ever expected to get. That's where, by the way, I'm loving the buying side right now, because you can get little wins for your buyers that make you look like the best buyer on earth. Like I have Brian settling in 2 weeks. We expected 10 offers on a house. Everybody, the listing agent put in there, get your offers in by Sunday at 8 o'clock. By Sunday at 8 o'clock, there was only our offer and one other offer. And we did an escalation that was $3,000 over. And then he got the house. He thought he was going to have to go like 15 grand over. And he got it for 3,000 over list price with inspections. I'm loving this market, because if you're aware of the Twilight Zone, you might actually find yourself with buyers that you can get off the fence, because Gary's right. Interest rate's not going to matter to them that much if we can show them their opportunity. I love you for being here with me today. Guys, just so you know, Kim, by the way, this is a win and not a win. Kim has to leave at 5 o'clock because she has a very important birthday to go to for her son, Ethan. And I'm upset about this, just so you know.
That he didn't invite you. No, honestly, he didn't invite Lisa either, and it's a golfing birthday party. I know. Yeah. Do you want to come? It's
How
at
old is
Top Golf.
Ethan?
Meet us there.
I should show up. I'm going to show up with my clubs at Top
Where
Golf
is
in
it?
Northeast.
The Northeast Philly Top Golf.
Oh, okay.
Lisa, let's show up. I'm going to get my car right now. It'll take me 45 minutes to get there. I thought
I
he'd
don't
be
have my
fishing.
clubs, but it's it's on the way.
But you don't need clubs. They have their.
I know. Well, you do if you're really
Oh, you bring your own clubs to
I bring
Top Golf? Okay.
not all of them.
I do. Does
Oh.
anybody have any questions? Does anybody have any thoughts? I know she has to leave at 5, but does anybody have any thoughts on what we talked about? Any questions? I totally want this to be an open book if anybody's got any questions or any thoughts.
So for me, recently, I've had 3 deals terminate in the last 2 months.
Inspections?
Inspections, yes, inspections, which is interesting. So that's not something that happened before because people weren't doing inspections. And
Right.
and where I didn't, and the one honestly terminated, we were done inspections, we negotiated, and then they just decided they couldn't live with it, mold.
Was it your
Yeah.
buyer or was it your seller?
2 were a buyer and one overbid. One, it happened. The one overbid and then, came back, asked for stuff, and they weren't happy. And that was an 800 price range. I was honestly surprised.
Is it expectations of what the buyer was? Did the deal fall apart because of the buyer's expectations or the seller's expectations?
I think it's both.
That's
So
frustrating, right?
the buyers asked for probably too much and the sellers gave almost nothing.
Well, then that's the struggle right now, is that the buyers are like, I keep running into this constantly, where the buyers are like, we still paid you a heck of a lot for this house, so we want it to be perfect, and
Well,
you would
you
fix
go
the things, and then the sellers
25 grand
say,
over, you
yeah.
kind of expect.
and then the flip side is the sellers are like, this is ridiculous, the amount of things you're asking for. You should just,
Right.
be happy you got
Can
the
I-
house. And
Can I ask, what was the total? Like, I know that there was multiple situations. By the way, this is what Matt and I were talking about last month, which is the negotiation of the negotiation is going to get more hard. Not because, by the way, Lisa's an amazing real estate agent. She's negotiated 1 million inspections. She teaches people how to do it. The problem is you have expectations that are going to be way harder to deal with buyers and sellers. And you don't need both of them to fall apart. You just need one to not have the right expectations set. And sometimes it's not even your client. You have no control over the expectations of a client. We got to buckle up. That's what we have to buckle up for. I'm sorry that you have them falling apart. I'm interested because did they fall apart for money more than $35,000 or 25?
One was probably around that. The other one was sort of an unknown. Like we negotiated it. It was over the mold. They had mold guy out. Mold guy was great. Was Anthony Ray, if anybody wants to know. He was great. He was calming. He was like, this isn't that bad. But it was sort of the unknown and started to keep them awake at night. Well,
you think about the expectations, right? That's it.
You know, and I'm never going to try to make somebody buy a house, right?
Right.
And they actually lost their deposit, and they knew they were going to lose their
Oh,
deposit.
wow.
Because you had already been, because the seller had already agreed.
We had already negotiated, and 5 days before settlement, they're like, we just are so worried about when we get, whatever. Can't rehash.
Well,
it,
so
but-
that's actually a really good point. Like as a listing agent lately, I've been looking at the deposits more than ever because I need that deposit to be so uncomfortable that they're not going to just walk away from it.
right.
Man, we could do this for 3 hours because I literally think we didn't even get into like the details of what we can do to protect ourselves from a market that is hard to strategize, but also hard to set expectations and hard to motivate the buyer. So like these are really hard times to actually get the transactions done that should have been easier. Like 2 weeks is not that big a deal, or now
Right.
it is.
Well, and when I
Um,
negotiate inspections, like I pointedly say to them, remember you have the option to back out. Like it's uncomfortable to say it because I'm like always thinking, oh, I hope they
Right.
don't do
You
it.
don't
But
want to, right?
I want them to understand when they're negotiating that you have the right to accept, you have the right to terminate, you have the right to negotiate. They went into negotiations. I thought they were fine. I didn't think I was talking anybody into anything, and I don't think they feel that way. I think just as time passed, they got more nervous or something.
If their expectations even changed within the market, within the seller's expectations changed with even from the moment they listed the house and expected X amount of money, then they had a deal that was going to get them $25,000 more, and somehow their
Well,
expectations.
this is the mold one.
Right. Well, yeah. Oh,
But I
right,
have to
okay,
tell you,
right.
I even said to the buyers, is there anything you think the sellers can do? And I said, I'm not speaking for the seller. I haven't even told the agent yet. Like you're telling me now, so I'm going to call them next. But
Yeah.
is there anything the seller could do that would make you consider this? And they got super quiet. And I'm like, are you guys still there? And here he said, if you told me they would give me $20,000, the answer's still no. I said, all right.
They just
And
checked out.
of
Yeah.
the
Yeah, they
seller
checked
was
out.
Nothing. The
So-
seller was doing nothing.
A little
Oh.
little known fact that we learned a few years ago, and Lisa, you might remember this because I remember talking to you about it, and then I went to paralegal, and most people do not realize that the way the inspection contingency is written in the agreement of sale, so in that initial period, you can accept, you can terminate, or you can negotiate. Once you choose to negotiate,
Yep.
and you did not terminate,
Yep.
if the seller gives you what you asked for,
Yep.
you can no longer terminate. You have to proceed. You
Yep.
cannot terminate or you will lose your
I just
deposit.
had that with somebody we'll talk about that separately, but I was
I
like,
actually
I
just
can't,
look-
she's like, send me the termination. I said, I can't. Because we were still in that negotiation period.
Yeah. In
And
the
I knew
negotiation
that somebody
period,
on
you
the seller
have to
side was an
give-
attorney.
You
I
have
said,
to give the
I'll send you the
seller.
termination tomorrow.
Yeah.
I actually
And
learned
then-
that Delaware
In
doesn't
the last 2
have
days.
that. Delaware, you don't have a right to terminate in Delaware. In Delaware, you have to actually always give the seller the ability to repair the things before you can terminate the deal.
Well,
you don't
same
have,
for New Jersey. In New Jersey, you can't terminate. You have
Unless
to give the seller the ability to fix things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I know you have to go.
Yeah. Well,
I
these
will
are
stick
all
around.
things for another topic.
we
I think
have so
I
many
think
more.
we already have next month's topic.
Your next topic,
solidified.
negotiating inspections.
Yeah, I think our
yeah.
next topic should be what are the important terms that we didn't have to think about that now, do you think about the X amount of days for deposit release to start mediation? Like these are all terms that didn't exist a few years ago that
I
now all
think
of a
about it
sudden.
because I.
Or
teach
the
that
negotiating period on inspections, which everybody just leaves that is, but maybe you want the negotiating period to be less or more.
Yeah.
By the
right.
way, just so you guys know, next month we're gonna have another guest, Sky Michaels. If you guys don't know who Sky is, he's an amazing dude in our area that also is a coach. So he's gonna join us next month. I don't know, Courtney knows the date, but we'll get the date out to you guys. I'm gonna be
The
doing
third
a free.
Wednesday of the month. 'cause
September
it's the same day as
16th.
our office.
There we
day.
go.
Yeah.
September 16th.
Yeah.
So we'll get that messaging out. I'm going to be doing a free webinar in October that I'll get messaging out about. And outside of that, you got anything you want to share before we let you go to Ethan's birthday that he didn't invite me to?
The next coffee for closers, if anyone wants to mark your calendar in advance, we have not started advertising it yet, but we will soon, is going to be, you'll like this one, Adam, and all you Doylestown people, Margot, at the Bucks Club in Jamison again, on October, hold please, let me look at my calendar.
We got to put it on the calendar right now.
It is October. Oh no, it's the same day as our next October 14th. Yes, because we're doing both the same day. I'm coffee for closers in the morning and I'm with you in the afternoon.
I love it. We're going to see.
October
We did that
14th.
last time before. We did that before.
Yes,
We can handle that.
Yeah.
All right.
So
All right,
everyone
well, you
has
guys
it
should go to that. If
down.
you're in anywhere in Bucks County, you should be going to this event. It's literally 100 agents doing what we're doing here, but in person, and it's free breakfast, and it's really good stuff too. All right, I love you. I want you to go to Ethan's birthday. Tell him
Bye.
I said I'm angry with him, but I'll catch up with him later. And
If it was
yell
a
at him.
fishing birthday, you
We'd
could
definitely be angry.
agree.
All right, I love you guys. I really appreciate everybody joining us. I want to let you guys
Good to
go
see
to your
everyone.
Friday. Goodbye, guys. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.